You know, there's been a little bit of talk about, you know, he's everywhere around the world, right? He's flying to Sydney, he's doing all this stuff when he could be, you know, maybe training at home. Do you feel like that maybe affected his performance and he looked flat tonight, or do you actually give it to Ankalaev for just putting the pressure on him and making him look flat?
That's a good question. I think that's a question definitely for him to answer. I definitely don't know his schedule. I know he's been bouncing around, but do you see this everywhere? When somebody becomes a big star and they start making lots of money, there are lots of different doors that open and opportunities.
All right, so Alex Pereira just lost his light heavyweight title to Magomed Ankalaev this past weekend, and even though there's a bit of controversy surrounding the decision, I hate to say it, but I agree with the judges on this one. And I don't want to take away anything from Ankalaev's performance because he put on a great showing and he won the fight fair and square, but at the same time, this guy Alex looked pretty damn bad on Saturday. Sure, Ankalaev's game plan and his well-rounded skill set definitely played a huge role in shutting down Alex's strengths, but I do think that there are other factors at play that led to his poor performance, and yeah, I'll be talking about all this and more throughout this video. But as always, let's talk about the fight itself first. I'll keep this short and sweet. I scored rounds 1 and 5 for Alex and rounds 2 and 4 for Magomed, and even though I personally didn't score round 5 for Ankalaev, I know that Demetrius Johnson did.
Yeah, I have a 4-1. 4-1. Anything 3-2, but if they give this fight to Alex, then it's fucking fixed. Those refs are fucking blind.
But man, that third round is very, very tough to call. And in spite of Alex landing more significant strikes that round by a pretty decent margin, why do I still score the third round in favor of Ankalaev? Well, I think it's a mixture of Alex mostly landing calf kicks, Magomed landing harder shots to the head and body, and Magomed being the aggressor throughout the round. You know, the Weasel just dropped one of his patented fight breakdown videos on his channel where he gives the third round to Ankalaev by the slimmest of margins, and honestly, I'm inclined to agree with him. Look, UFC judging has evolved to the point where 10-8 rounds are being given much more than they used to, and I think that's a great step in the right direction. But we haven't quite reached the point where judges will score razor-thin rounds 10-10, even though the third round of this fight is a pretty good candidate for one. Regardless, seeing as we live in a world where 10-10 rounds are as rare as seeing Conor McGregor fight, I'm compelled to actually score a winner for this round, and that winner is Ankalaev, which brings my official scorecard to 48-47, with Ank winning rounds 2, 3, and 4. With all this being said, good god, Alex fought a really shitty fight. Like, did he and his team seriously think that they were going to win this fight solely off of leg kicks? Actually, I know that's not what his team thought, because in between the 4th and 5th rounds, Glover Teixeira was urging Alex to throw more punches, which, to be fair, it did seem like he started opening up more, but it was just a day late and a penny short. Where was the boxing? Where was the legendary left hook? Where was literally any form of aggression or pressure or desire to win from Alex?
From Alex Pereira, it was just kind of a lazy performance. I didn't see that real desire to want to win. Listen, Ankalaev was big, he was strong, he was good enough to compete on the feet, and of course, he had the takedown threat. And even though he didn't get the takedown, the threat of the takedown, we always say it, that was as good as getting the takedown because it opened up the strikes for him.
Bro, I seriously hate to say it, especially about Alex, who's one of my favorite fighters in the game right now, but he kind of fought scared on Saturday, and I'm trying to wrap my head around why Alex seemed to have no sense of urgency against Ankalaev. Like, it's just crazy to me that after over a year of constant shit talking each other back and forth, with both guys taking personal digs at each other, that this was the performance that Pereira ended up aspiring to. It's a damn shame. Now, I've seen some people point out that Alex should have been given more credit by the judges for defending all of Magomed's takedown attempts, and I see where they're coming from, but here's the thing. Even though Alex canceled out all of the takedowns, he still got outstruck both in terms of total strikes landed and significant strikes landed. And then when it comes to the strikes that Alex did land, 63% of his significant strikes were the leg kicks that genuinely did nothing. Pereira landed 11 significant strikes to the head compared to Ankalaev's 36. Like, there was a very obvious volume issue when it came to Alex's performance. And hey, full credit where it's due, Ankalaev's constant pressure and mixing of the martial arts was able to keep Alex on the back foot the entire time, and it seemed like it overloaded his thought process, which resulted in him fighting very hesitantly. You know, it seems like Ankalaev took a page out of Merab Dvalishvili's playbook for this fight, in that he was willing to fail 11 takedowns, and he was willing to eat some big shots, but as long as he was moving forward and getting Alex to think, then he knew that he'd be able to wear him down. And even though on paper Alex is the far superior striker, and even though he was defending the takedowns flawlessly, I think his fear of the takedown played a huge role when it came to his lack of aggression and lack of striking defense. You know, you can't fault a guy for knowing what his strengths are in a fight, and as boring as it is to watch a guy turn a fight into a gritty clinch battle, that's the game. And although I do think that there is a very legitimate conversation that could be had when it comes to MMA judging when it comes to clinch fighting, in the context of this fight, I do think that Ankalaev had a very good good understanding of when and where in the fight he would be most effective, and his team came up with a great game plan that was designed to exploit Alex's one-dimensional skill set. Okay, hopefully I've given Ankalaev enough props for his performance, because just based on Alex's history and what we've seen from him throughout his time in the UFC, I think an honest discussion should be had on if Alex's fame and notoriety ended up being his undoing for this fight, because I really don't think that we saw him in his usual form this time around. And as much as I dislike Ronda Rousey, I always tend to be reminded of something that she said whenever a massive star in the sport falls. When a fighter becomes so famous to the point where they start transcending the borders of the sport and start gaining the attention of the world, it becomes harder and harder to stay focused on winning. And when it comes to Alex, throughout the last couple of weeks, it really seems like he allowed himself to get distracted from training much more than his previous fights. For example, a month ago, while he was right in the middle of his training camp, he thought it would be a good idea to travel all the way to Australia so that he could corner Sean Strickland against DDP at UFC 312. Then a video of him meeting Drake at one of his concerts surfaced online, but the concerning thing about this clip is that this particular concert was in Australia, which means that Alex stayed there for like a week after UFC 312, which seems a bit excessive to me.
But what is Pereira still doing in Australia, Chill? He fights in 2 weeks. It's concerning to me.
It's tough on the road. You can get that training session in, but it usually involves a treadmill at the hotel lobby. Maybe you and your coach clear a little bit of space, even in your room, and you do a mitt workout.
And then 2 weeks before the event, he posted a video to his YouTube channel where he's in New York with Moses the Jeweler, where he gives money away to random strangers. And then within the last month, it was revealed that he's going to be on the cover of the next EA UFC game, which means he probably took a day off of training to do a photo shoot for the title. Now, of course, this probably doesn't seem like all that much, and maybe it isn't, but you gotta keep in mind that while Alex was indulging in all of these distractions, jet setting across the world, and making YouTube content that isn't even fight related, Magomed was without a doubt locked the fuck in for the fight. Whereas Pereira was out of the gym and hopping around different time zones less than a month out from what was his biggest title defense, the only time that people ever saw Magomed was when fighters pointed out that he was grinding in the UFC PI. I actually wanted to make a video on Alex seemingly not being fully focused on the task at hand a couple of weeks ago, but I decided against it because I figured that this guy is a seasoned veteran of combat sports and he knew what he was doing. But looking back at it now, him entertaining all of these distractions while he was so close to his fight just feels very reckless in hindsight. Also, this fight had such big implications for Alex's career because people were already talking about if Alex won this fight, then he would move up to heavyweight where he'd probably fight John Jones or Tom Aspinall. So I really don't think that it's an exaggeration when I say that this fight could have set him up for a chance at a third UFC belt, legendary UFC status, and he spent his time gallivanting across the world and not being focused in the gym. And even though I don't doubt that Alex was training while he was in Australia and then while he was in New York City, I can't help but wonder if mentally he wasn't as dialed in as he should be. Not to mention, Alex did a whole Twitch livestream with Moses, so he clearly didn't give himself much time to be putting in work for his fight that day. You know, I've seen people talking about how Alex had 5 separate UFC curses on him as he was heading into the fight. There's the Drake curse, the EA UFC cover curse, the Fighter of the Year curse, the Israel Adesanya curse, and then there's even the Mark Zuckerberg curse. And of course, I don't believe in curses, I only believe in shaman magic, but a lot of these curses actually feel more like a symptom more so than the problem itself. What I mean by this is, when a fighter gets so big to the point where they become Fighter of the Year, and then they get put on the cover of a video game, their star power is big enough to the point where famous people like Drake and Mark Zuckerberg want to meet them. And that's not a problem in and of itself, but what I'm saying is, there comes a point where a fighter like Alex Pereira becomes so famous where there's so many distractions around them, whether it be doing media events or mainstream celebrities wanting their attention. And in a world with limited time and resources, it's probably really hard to say no to the cool little benefits that come along with being a UFC superstar. So what I'm saying is, I do think that Alex was cursed heading into this fight, but it was probably only one curse in particular. The way I see it, Pereira fell victim to the curse of notoriety, and it seems like he didn't have the willpower or maybe even the desire to say no to the temptations that came along with being so famous, where A-list celebrities and billionaires were dying to meet him. And look, I don't say this because I want to make excuses for the guy, and again, I definitely don't want to take away from Ankalaev's performance, but I really do think that this could be another factor that contributed to his loss on Saturday. And obviously, I don't know Alex, but seeing as he's a fighter who had the ambition and the perseverance to put himself in the position that he did, he probably thought that he could handle all of the distractions while staying at the top of his game. But whether it be Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor or even Chuck Liddell, honestly, once a fighter begins to get a taste of being a true superstar, the allure of the lights and the attention that comes along with it usually ends up being their undoing. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about Alex's performance on Saturday. Was this a case of him taking his eye off the prize, or is he just simply the inferior fighter compared to Magomed Ankalaev? As always, if you liked the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
No more chama, calma. So he lost at the International Women's Day. Maybe that's a sign, guys. I don't know. New light heavyweight champion Ankalaev. Congrats. He did a really good job. If you guys are talking robbery, you don't understand anything from MMA. So let's not talk about robbery. That's completely BS. This guy won, and actually, he got this title shot very, very late, right? So I think we should give him some props. Even if we don't like him or we don't like his fighting style, we should give him some props. No more Shama.